You're drawing, you're painting, but you have no one to comment on it. So how are you going to improve? This is why I decided to do this tutorial today. I'm going to comment on your work and I will give my humble suggestions. If you want a step-by-step tutorial of my drawings, such as this one and that one, you can go to my Patreon, patreon.com/Ece Gurler, and all the gallery information is available on my website, ecegurler.com. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, the subscribe button is right there. Now if you're ready, let's talk.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Now let's look at your work and I will give my humble suggestions in the end. Hopefully you will benefit from it. This is a portrait done by graphite pencils, and the first thing I want to say is that in the beard and hair part you did a great job. I know it is difficult, you know, to do the directions right, to have the density right. Maybe you could do a little bit denser, but in overall I think you did a good job with the hair and the beard part. The first thing I want to comment on the eyes, you know, when you actually draw a straight line from one eye to the eye, if the person is looking at the camera straight, then those eyes needs to align. And when I do that to your drawing, I see that the eye on the right is a little bit above that line, which is not a hugely important thing, but it makes it look smaller. So when you look closely, the right eye is a little bit smaller than the left eye, and if the person is looking straight to the camera, this shouldn't be happening. Another thing about the chin and jaw area, the drawing has a little bit larger jaw and chin area, which needs to get a little bit narrower, if you ask me. And especially with the clothing part too, you know, your shading is good. Only thing I could tell is just like one area that needs a little bit more shading, because think about like a fold, right? So the top part is lighter and the bottom part needs to be darker so that you give that depth. But the bottom parts are two, not one. So, you know, we have to kind of also don't forget about the other deepest part that we should shade. My other suggestion is about the darkness of the shadows. So when you look at the shadows, they are really dark in this photo, right? And they are the same tone. But when I look at in your drawing, those areas have different kind of shades. Let's look and let's bring them all together next to each other. Do you see? They're not the same. So we need to get them dark and we need to get them equally dark. So that's the key. This is a wonderful drawing. I really love it. It is really realistic. The dog is really cute. All these fur details are amazing, and the eyes and the nose is really realistic, and I can tell you spent hours on this. So I congratulate you first. The second thing is, I think if I drew this, what I would do differently is maybe the shadows on the clothing. I think the yellow is great, but I would pick more like a burnt sienna or a little bit like lighter tone than black or sepia here. But this is not bad at all. You have a different way of interpreting your own drawing. I'm just saying that if I drew it, this is what I would done. And for the fur, you can also apply this technique that we do with the X-Acto knife. We kind of scrape the top layer to get all these kind of fine lines that our pencils cannot give. I did this in the Harry Potter tutorial with the hair, so let's remember. I just scrape off the paint without damaging the paper, of course, because we shouldn't apply too much pressure here, as we can tear the paper or we can actually cut the paper, and we don't want that. So once you give enough layers, you can go above them with your X-Acto knife and give more realistic look. But your color choices, your control over your pencil, scaling and ratios, like they're all perfect. Great job. Again, another great portrait. I really liked how you gave the realistic look to this portrait, and the hair and also the beard. This is really good job. The only thing I want to give suggestion about is the scaling and also shading. So as you can see, the photo is looking straight to the camera. But then when you look at the drawing, it looks like it's looking to the left. So in order to prevent that, what we can do is you can always look at the reference photo and measure those length of the whites from the beginning of the eye to the eyeball, just like this. So as you can see, it starts small and then towards the nose it's bigger, and you can do the same thing in your drawing, and then you're gonna get the scale right. Other than that, when you draw a straight line from the beginning of the eyes down, then this gives you an opinion about where the nose is. So in the reference photo, it looks like the nose is bigger, and in the drawing it's a little bit smaller. And how we understand it is just basically if it's coming out of those lines or it's just staying inside those lines. This is how we decide on things. In the drawing, we see that the shadows here and the shadows here are the same. But when you look at the reference photo, you see that the shadow here is much darker. So if we kind of pay attention to these tone variety, then we will give more depth to our portrait. Another one is the ear. You see that, you know, the lines underneath the eyes are perfect. There's no, you know, distinct lines. They're just like tonal variations, and that looks perfect. And also around the lips as well, we don't see a line, we just see tonal changes. But unfortunately, when we come to the ear, that changes. For some reason, there are very distinct lines there, which takes away from realism. So if you want to create realism, do exactly what you did under the eyes and around the lips to the ears as well. Those little dots that I show you here, they need a little bit of highlighting. So I would get maybe an eraser pencil or a white charcoal and give more highlights to those. And finally, the clothing part, as you can see, there's distinct lines around the clothing as well. Don't forget to do the tonal changes there and create a more realistic effect there as well. But you're very talented. Definitely this looks realistic, and definitely it looks like the reference photo, so good job. Let's come to Cobalt Mole. This is a soft pastel portrait. I love soft pastels because it gives this dreamy look. Here what we see is just basically these are stick ones, I think. So here the color choices are really good, and how you blend them together is perfect. The highlights, the shadows are there. Really great work. The only two things that I want to mention is the first one is the paper choice. Do you see the tooth is showing in most of the parts right here and around the neck area? If you don't want that, you should buy different pastel mat. I use Clairefontaines, and I'm really happy about it, because when I'm trying to do realistic work, it just doesn't show any tooth and it looks much more smooth and realistic. The other comment that I want to make is about details. With those chalk sticks, you cannot make the teeth or eyelashes or eye details or the curls of the hair easily. I mean, it's almost impossible. To do that, to give details like that, you need pastel pencils. So I use Carbonatello's pastel pencils, and I highly recommend it. They are really good. And once you have those pencils, then you can give all those details in the ear and the teeth, on the lips. It's gonna be much more realistic. This is a graphite pencil work. What problem do I see? I think it's too cold. I wish it was summer, first of all. Second, it's not that realistic because I don't think that many birds would fly in that part of the world in that season. And why the snow accumulated this way? I think the wind was blowing this way, but not that way. Guys, of course I'm kidding. There are no problems in this drawing. I can't see. If you see it, let me know. I really can't see any problem here. Great job. Keep it up. Diva time. So Beyonce, ladies and gentlemen. So here what I see is a perfect smooth transition for between colors, and I see very good scaling. The color choices are perfect, and of course eyes are very good, very realistic. But of course I have to say a few things. If I were you, I would add more, for example, eye details in the white of the eye. Let's kind of zoom in a little bit and I will show you. Oh, okay, that's enough. So you can see that, you know, we have reds and we have dark grays, sometimes different colors in our white of the eye because we reflect what is surrounding us. Another one is the lines around these nostrils. So those are too abrupt. I think I would do more transitioning by applying more pressure to less pressure, either towards in or outside of the nose to give more depth, because when we do this, it looks more cartoonish. You did this transition in the ears, actually, I can see it. So if you did the same transition around the nostrils, I think that would be much better. The same thing happens around the lips. If I didn't see the reference photo, I would say like, oh, you know, there's like lip liner or something like that. But in the reference photo, I don't see any lip liner. So I'm thinking maybe you are contouring just without noticing it, because our brain sometimes wants to complete things just like that. The other one is the bone here. It just looks really obvious. It's almost too much out there. And I think the reason is the shadow around it is a little bit too dark. If you kind of lighten it up a little bit, then it could have been just maybe more realistic. But honestly, it's not a big deal. It just looks like there's a lump there. And if you kind of tone down a little bit that brown shadow around it, instead of sepia, maybe you could use another brown ochre tone, then that would be much better. And finally, the hair. I know in colored pencils, hair is a pain in the neck. So let's look at what problem could be here. Let's compare this and this together. And you see that the color choices are great, but we don't see the string of hair very much. So it doesn't look as realistic as it should be. How we can do this is just adding more layers with your pencil. And of course, your pencil needs to be sharpened. And also after we add so many layers of hair, we can always use that X-Acto knife to give a little bit more tiny little details, the hair strings, flying hair and such. So that's just my suggestion. Another great portrait. I see that you're not afraid to go dark, so that's amazing, because in new artists or some artists that I see, they are afraid to go dark. This is awesome. I'm so happy to see this. Your initial sketch was very successful, or you have very good eye in terms of ratios and scaling. This is very accurate. And at the same time, I like how you gave those shadows in the hat. But the first thing that I would change in this drawing would be the upper lip is a little bit thicker than the original photo. Probably I would change this. And the second one is about the ear. So this is what happens when we are drawing. Sometimes we don't like specific areas. We don't like to draw specific things in our drawings, like some people don't like the nose, some people don't like the ears, and some people don't like the clothing part. So we just, when we came to that part, we started to be like, nah, I'm done. You know, we don't do many details. So I feel like this is what happened here for you. You didn't give many details in the ear because either you were tired to do it or you didn't want to do it. But definitely that ear needs a little bit more work. Another amazing thing that our brain does is repetitive things. For example, the lower lip has lines most of the time, right? And we get our eraser pencil or white charcoal, whatever, to give the shine there, like in lines. But some lip types are not like that. They're more circular or square-like shines. So it depends on the structure of the lips. But most commonly we see the lines, so we automatically think about lines. And instead of drawing what we see, we draw what we think. So here, the reference photo has more like a circular or square-like shines, reflections, whereas in the drawing I see a lot of lines. This is a little bit different and it kind of makes it look different than the reference photo. I just wanted to mention. I think the biggest thing that I would change in this drawing, if I did this drawing, would be the midtones. I don't see enough midtones here. So midtones give us the gestures, right? That it gives us the character of our face. Where would I add more midtones? Let me show you with some green arrows. So the lines here, and the shadow here needs to be added. So the neck needs to be as dark as the cheek, and also the chin area here, the jaw, needs to be dark as well. And yes, I think you shaded these areas under the eyes, but they need to be a little bit darker and more obvious. And here too, you need to add a little bit more shading. This is it for this video, guys, but a lot of people sent me their work, and of course they were really difficult to fit in one single tutorial, so I'm going to make part 2, part 3, and part 4. If you sent me your work, definitely you will see my comment on it in one of these videos. So don't worry, it's coming. Until then, take care. Bye. Thanks for watching my video. If you like my videos, please don't forget to subscribe. And for my real-time narrated tutorials, visit my Patreon, patreon.com/Ece Gurler. Stay with art and love.